All righty. Hello. It's 20 minutes after 9 on this Black Friday. I'm wave meteorologist Brian Good. Welcome to SnowTALK. Well, the snow lovers, I can tell you're excited. Hey, I'm excited. I'm a snow lover, right? So, yes, we're going to be talking about the Saturday wave, but I think there's a lot to discuss in general, though, in the longer term as well, that I wanted to cover with you guys, and we'll do that coming up as well with this update. As always, you guys can comment on the social media side, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. I think I got them all. Not everyone can see those comments if you're watching on the streaming devices, so I promise you I'm not just talking to myself. There are people commenting. But if you want to chat, you can certainly do that. Sometimes people open up both windows and do both. All right, so here's the ordeal. I'm going to walk you through the setup as we get into, obviously, tomorrow night into early Sunday, and then we'll get into next week, and then I'll hopefully have enough time to get through at least some of the longer term stuff as well coming up here in a few moments. All right. So if you have any questions, and I'm sure you will, please hold off until I at least try to explain the scenario and the setup, and then I'll try to answer some of those. If you're going to ask specifically for each individual location, it's going to be a little tougher to answer. So I'm hoping that when I show you the data and the maps that will answer that. So just hang tight, be patient. Let me get through that, and then hopefully we'll get it all covered. Fair enough? All right, let's start with the snowboard here this morning. And we do have, of course, the Clipper snow tomorrow night. That Monday Clipper keeps showing up. Just won't go away. I still don't think it's anything to get too worried about right now, but these can be sneaky and certainly need to be watched. So I don't think it needs to be off the board yet. Next week, though, as we get out of this Arctic air, a classic overrunning setup. We're going to start off with a mix that will go to rain. The problem is, will that mix happen during the morning commute on Wednesday? That could lead to some issues there briefly anyway. So we'll cover that. And then next weekend, another blast comes our way. And I think the data is not fully showing it yet, but I do think we'll get into more snow showers into the extended, perhaps as early as next weekend. All right, there you go. That's the rundown of what we're going to be talking about today, though. It's all about the shoppers, right? Black Friday kicking in full swing. Certainly has been at the outlets. Look how many people there. That Nike line, the Nike line, once again, is the one that's been number one, I think, every year since we've had this camera up at the outlets, and it looks to be the case again today. But boy, it does look busier. It certainly was this morning, too, than what I witnessed last year for Black Friday. So a lot of you are heading out more this year, it seems like. So, but it's cold, wind chills in the 20s. We've had a few flurries flying around this morning, adding to the festive nature, right, of getting out, venturing out and doing some shopping. The flakes have been flying. Now that's ending. In fact, we're about to get into some blue skies. Some of you are already seeing that west of Louisville. We'll see that here very, very soon. All right, more on that in just a second. Let's get right into the temperature outlook first. You can tell where we've had some of the clouds that have been lingering in some spots and where the clearing skies have allowed temperatures to drop, right? So temperatures in Louisville right now at 34. So far from what I've been able to find, we did not hit the freezing mark this morning. So we've gone 248 days above freezing. Last time we were in the 20s alone was at the end of February last year. We're almost coming up on the year mark, right? It's been a long time. Very unusual setup for us. But anytime you see those kind of unusual stats, whether it's dry and warm or cold and snowy, there always seems to be a balancing act. The rubber band does tend to snap. It's just a matter of when and where. How does that configure? And I think that's what's happening here is we're seeing the blocking pattern that led to the drought, led to a period of heat there for a while, led to severe weather in the spring that we just remember Iowa getting hit all the time. That was the headline. It was always in the plains, right? Those monster tornadoes coming through led to the hurricanes hitting Florida multiple times. So the blocking pattern, I think, is going to be a key factor. And the way this is trending is we're going to end up maybe staying cold for a while. We'll see. All right, so let's get into the radar and satellite. You can see those flurries mainly to the east. Radar is not going to ever pick them up very well because they are so light, and it's a minor issue. When I was coming in early this morning, you can see them falling from my headlights, but it wasn't anything that was causing a problem or sticking. And there's the clearing line. It's kind of like a backwards C shape is where the sun's starting to break through the clouds just west of Louisville, and that is heading eastbound. So we will clear the sky out as we did this afternoon, although a bit of a tail here in southern Kentucky because it is a backwards C shape. So you may lag a little bit south of Parkways on getting that blue sky, but we all should have some sunshine to enjoy. But boy, it's going to be cold, though. That wind actually is going to get a little stronger this afternoon when we get that sunshine. So wind chills are certainly going to stay in the 20s all afternoon. It's going to be a cold night tonight. Then as we broaden out the view, we get ready for what's coming our way for the Saturday window. You're looking at the radar and you're thinking, oh, that must be the clipper right there into West Omaha. But nope, that's not it. This is it. Way up here into the western provinces there of Canada, northeast of Vancouver. So it's now in the network. Yay. So we have been launching weather balloons into it. And there has been an interesting shift and change in the data with it as that is happening this morning, which is one of the reasons why we always say, once we get into the weather balloon phase of this and it gets sampled, then we got to see what adjustments at. Sometimes there are, sometimes there's not. In this case, there are adjustments that are happening to it. And it's a mix of good and bad. I'll quit being vague and get to the details in a moment, I promise. But it's no doubt bringing with it that cold Arctic air that's way up where Santa is now, dropping it down across Canada. We'll pull it across the Ohio Valley as we head into the end of the weekend and certainly into early next week. And it's going to get cold all the way down into Florida as well. In fact, once again, another falling iguana warning coming out for them. It's not a technical warning, but you get the idea. They're going to drop below 45. Therefore, the iguanas will start falling out of the trees. We talk about this, I think, every year, right? It seems like. But it's kind of a weird feeling and setting. If you've never seen this in person, down there in Florida, they're used to it. They're like, whatever, it's a Tuesday. But for us, it'd be like, whoa, wait a minute, you got giant lizards coming out of the trees right now. Just as locals always try to tell you there, don't touch them, leave them alone. And as it warms up, they will start moving again. Because if you try to touch them while they're paralyzed like that, it's a temporary paralysis, they could get a little upset because they're scared. So don't make it any worse for them, right? But anyway, just always thought that was a fun little thing that happens in Florida. Florida always gets the weird stuff, it seems like. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to walk you through this hour by hour for the Clipper setup as we head into Saturday. So pay attention to your town, where you're located at, or at least the town closest to you. And this is, again, just a snapshot. So I'll try to fine tune where we have some wiggle room here on some of the data. We don't have to worry about any issues this afternoon. We're fine. Cloud cover will be cleared out. We'll end up with a clear night. Now, this is the first sign of a change on notice this morning that was showing up in the data. The earlier trends for tonight and early Saturday were for us to drop down into the upper teens and lower 20s. The signal's coming in a bit warmer. Still cold, don't get me wrong, but warmer on that profile. So now we may only drop a few degrees from really where we're going to be today into the 29 to 31 degree range. That's a nearly 10-degree jump in some cases compared to what the data showed even 30 hours ago. So that is significant. Now, there is an exception to that. I still think if you are perhaps in some of the valley areas in central Kentucky, but certainly across Indiana, you still could very well drop into the at least lower 20s, as you see there in the data. I think that's fair what it's got here. And therefore, you are really going to get cold for late tonight, early tomorrow. But around Louisville and central Kentucky, there will be a drop that may not be as substantial of a drop. And why is this happening? Well, there is a bit more of a southwest wind component that is developing into the lower layers of the atmosphere ahead of the clipper. And therefore, the numbers are staying up. Now, what that's doing, though, at the same time, is we discussed yesterday, is that if you want something a little more interesting, you got to get warmer air, right? Well, the warmer air is adding now a little more moisture into this. So we got a challenge ahead of us. As the system rolls through, there's going to be a decent amount of lift, we call this, or snowfall rates that are going to be enhanced as it moves on by. That's going to be passing very close to the parkways and I-64, but across Indiana, because you're going to be so much colder, especially aloft, than even Louisville will be, your snowfall ratio will be higher, but you won't see as much moisture. So it's nearly the same thing, just balancing out the two different aspects of the atmosphere from north to south, but you may end up with the same result, if that makes sense. So that's why we've got a bit of a challenge on drawing a snowfall map, because we're trying to consider both those you in Seymour. We're trying to consider Louisville, trying to consider Campbellsville, and trying to look at the profile and think, okay, how will that all, and if you think of the scales balancing, that's kind of how this is being weighted. In other words, there is some, I hate to say the phrase of bust potential, but there is certainly some bust potential, because now we've got that more complicated aspect being injected into the system. So that's what we're going to be watching out for as we evolve here, and I'm about to show you on Futurecast. So this is the most recent data that just rolled in minutes ago. So as we head into Saturday morning, you got to get up early tomorrow. It's just cold. You're fine. No issues. Should actually have a really nice sunrise. And then we'll see the clouds begin to increase. Now, as we head into the afternoon, and it could be as early as about the 4 to 5 o'clock window, we should start to see the snow beginning to fall. Now, because we do have a little bit more of a warmer start to the day, temperatures should be able to get above freezing. So therefore, initially, the first round of flakes may actually melt, but it won't take long at all, and they'll begin to stick. So we're going to go with a basic alert day setup for this, of starting at 6 p.m. That's when I think we'll start running into any type of slick road conditions, roughly around the 6 o'clock news tomorrow, and then continue through the night. But at the very start of that, we got a little bit of a buffer of a couple of hours, even though the snow may be falling, before issues start to develop on area roads. All right, you see the darker blues. That indicates a little bit more of a moderate snow, by the way. So we head into 7 o'clock. It's already past St. Louis, where I think in St. Louis, it'll easily be snowing in that region anyway, of at least an inch per hour. But it's moving, so they won't get a ton of snow, but they could get close to what would be almost a winter storm warning for us. They could get up to that 4-inch mark. They could in Missouri. That would not surprise me one bit, the way this is trending. So could be a potent little system for them into Missouri. So if you're traveling that direction, really, if you're heading west on 64 at all, not recommended. 64 is going to be a mess in general as that system scoots on by. Okay, here we go. Let me back this up just a tad. Sorry, I went real fast. We get into the 7 to 9 o'clock range. And again, right on the southern edge of this, because we have a little bit more of that southwest component, there is a signal that is showing up now where we could get, I don't know if it's going to be rain. I doubt it would be rain in the far southern sections, but it could be sleet. Yes, that's possible. So there could be a sleet snow mixture to start with, and then we'll all go over to snow. And the rates are going to be your highest right on the edge of where that is. And that is where we don't know entirely if the model is going to be right on the placement of that. So let me back this up and play it again. As it moves on by, your snowfall rate will be the highest, very close to where that line is going to be. But your ratios, again, will be higher, even in the lighter snow. So in general, it's a fairly widespread accumulating type of setup that comes through. We'll cool down below freezing as it passes on by, and then it looks like it's going to just linger for a while into the overnight hours, almost like a tail will drape across the region. It's not going to be a wide band, though, of snow for the overnight. It will be narrow. So there will be some areas, the north and south, that see it end completely, and then somewhere in the middle of that, don't know for sure where that will be at, somewhere in the middle of that, the snow will continue into the 3, 4 o'clock in the morning range on Sunday. And that's where we could get some overachieving perhaps on snowfall amounts. Still some trends are favoring north than they are south, but I think it's not so much the track anymore as it is that we need to figure out where that heavier rain, the rate will be on the potential for sleet, and then you get into the all snow zones somewhere in that area. That's where you're going to get that little sweet spot that will develop. But still, wide enough of a band that I think everyone's going to get something out of this as it moves on by, just varying totals. It scoots into the area, and then we end up with the snow ending, but flurries throughout the morning hours and staying cold throughout all of Sunday. So the data is coming in. Now, this is the GFS ensembles. I think it's a good way to look at this. I know it's hard to read, so let me, sorry, I always forget that. You don't want to look at me, you want to look at the maps. I know it's hard to read, so let me explain. This is what its snowfall potential, and it's given us a good, 40 to 60% chance of snowfall. And this is data I'm only able to pull right now for Louisville, by the way. There's the clipper on Monday. See how it's still showing up, yet when you look at the GFS, there's no snow showing up. So the ensembles see that potential, and that's the reason why I think we can't take it out, because it could sneak in. And then we get into next week. I mean, you can almost clearly see right there where it's got the blue indicating snow and then goes over to green. So it's, again, wintry mix going over to rain quickly. And then next weekend, maybe the opposite. We'll see. Over here is the ranges for the clipper. And it's obviously a range on the low end, but most of them are focused on that 1 inch mark. That black line, the thick black line, is kind of the median or the average of them all coming in close to 1 inch, but its potential range is up there closer to maybe 2 inches or so on the very high end. And then on the low end, obviously, would be nothing, but I think we'll get at least something out of this. So the truth, as I always say, is somewhere in between. So that's kind of fair right there at the 1 inch mark. In fact, the 1 inch is going to be a very common number I think we're going to get out of the system as it moves on by. Looking at the Euro ensembles, well, as I always say, you look for the signal to be locked in, right? There's only one ensemble member. I don't know why it's going to be the oddball out. What should be the right one? But they're all basically filled in. So now that they're all filled in, now we pay attention to the amounts once they're all filled in. And most of them are gray, indicating a 1 to 2 inch ordeal. Once it gets to blue, you're getting to 3. There's only one that has a 3 inch potential out of that, but a lot of them are close to 1 inch, if you can read the numbers anyway. And then there's the Monday wave. It just, it doesn't know what to do. And even extended, it's noisy still. All right. So it's not blank. If it were blank, we know we're going to get a huge warm up, but it's not. So cold weather is still on the table with that, but there's no doubt the clipper, I mean, that stands out on high confidence on at least a light snow setup. Here are the modelings for this. And notice I have our forecast included in the bottom right, but you can see that the theme is fairly similar. Some are a little more on the darker blue, indicating a little bit more north of the 2 inch mark. It won't be too much more than that, but they're all just kind of varying. It's very blotchy, right? So it's hard to draw a snowfall forecast when it is blotchy like this, but it's because the rates will vary at times. You'll get, in some cases, you'll ease to flurries, and then you'll get back to a moderate to heavy snow shower, and then you're back to flurries again. It'll be back and forth. And that's the reason why some of these amounts in your own county could vary. And but in general, you see that everyone just about gets something, right? So that's what that's the fair deal. So here's our numbers as they stand right now. I'm going to go with a fairly good widespread zone here of a riot at the 1 inch mark. I do think there's going to be some overachieving to get a 1.5. Could we get a 2 inch mark out of this? Yes, I do think that is indeed possible. I know you're going to ask, are we going to get a 4 inch mark? That has got its limits. I would have to see a lot more moisture being added into this, or the ratio would have to go up. But if your ratio is going up, that means your air is getting drier. So it's for snow, it's never easy, guys. It's never easy. Just as when you think you're heading in the right direction, something else hits you from the other side, right? So it's all about balancing the right amount of moisture and just enough cold air. That's how you get the real pretty stuff and a nice little coating. This will be our first accumulating snow. I really don't want to count the last one. It was officially 1/10 of an inch, but if you weren't staring at the window to see it, you didn't really see it if the roads were just wet. This one's going to be different. It's again darkness of night, Arctic air, cold ground, good setup for a nice little advisory level snow. Weather Service should be. I can't imagine why they wouldn't have a winter weather advisory issued for this. So I'm sure they're discussing that. That's not our job. It's their job. So we'll leave them to that. But it could come out. I suspect it would be this afternoon. Sometimes they can come out at 11 o'clock in the morning on the day before like this, but it may more than likely be around 2 o'clock or so this afternoon. They could issue an advisory for this event for Saturday. So stay tuned. As soon as that's issued, obviously you'll notice in the Wave Weather app, it'll hit instantly once it pops in. In fact, actually, I think it might even pop on TV. So you'll be able to see it. So we'll be watching that, but a nice little coating of snow at play. All right. Any questions that I can try to answer on this? Hopefully in a very vague way, right? All right, Adam, when does all this start in Indiana? Well, it's going to be generally 4 to 6 p.m. is when I think it will start falling. Once we get to the 6 p.m. window onward, that's when we have to start paying attention to roads. Now, temperatures are going to be at that point of 28 to 30 for majority of the snowfall. So salt actually works very well in this setup. So treated roads will be in much better shape than, say, the side roads will be. In your ramps, your neighborhoods, they will easily get snow covered. So slick road conditions on side roads, you bet. That's going to be a concern. But the interstates and the freeways, everything's going to get salted. I'm sure they're watching this carefully. And the fact we don't have rain before it means they can even put down brine today, and maybe be doing that today, this afternoon, we'll see. But they can pre-treat it, and therefore impacts, I think, will be kept a little more at minimum as the main roads are concerned. But side roads, a bit slick. So my advice to you, if you don't have to travel at all Saturday night, early Sunday, then don't. If you do, just be careful, take it slow. And this is not a big snow. This is not one you're going to need chains, or only you can use chains in Kentucky. But anyway, you won't need four-wheel drive to get through this, is what I'm trying to say. This is a light snow event. It just, we don't get this very much lately, it seems like, right? It just doesn't happen often. So these events are starting to become the new norm now of a big snow for us. So we'll see. But this is the early snapshot on this. Okay. Loretta, good question on Lexington. And Lexington, I think, is going to get certainly advisory level as well. There are very similar amounts of Louisville will get. I would say an inch or so will fall there. This is likely going to start after the game. So if you're going to the Governor's Cup, you're going to be fine getting there. You're going to be fine during the game. But when you're leaving and coming back, you'll be driving toward this. So I wouldn't dilly-dally too long hanging out in town. If you don't want to deal with this, then I would head on back fairly quick in the evening, so you don't have to worry about all that, and just get home safely and get nice and cuddled there. So good question, and we'll be watching. It could be one of the colder Governor's Cups too that I can think of. Let's see, Bryce, will there be any banding? Good question. Yes, there could be some. Right, it's going to be more of a clump setup as it moves on by, as the main piece of the clipper comes into the area. A bit of banding features could develop. You guys hear us talk about lapse rates a lot in severe weather. The amount of lift this has is going up on the clipper. And that's one of the bigger things I've noticed, is that lift going up means we can get a bit of a heavier snow rate. It does inject more warmer air, but I'm trying to balance all those ideas out, and this is what I'm coming up with. And we'll see how things trend later today. Kevin will be here later, and we'll see if that is the trend. Let's hope it doesn't keep going that way, because, you know, we don't want too much warm air getting injected into this, but we want just the right amount. But it could easily trend the other way too, so I don't want to discount it. I think now that it's in the upper air network and weather balloons are seeing this, I think the trend the other way is unlikely. I think we're starting to see this starting to lock in more and more, and I like that. That gives us a little more confidence coming into play. Amanda, the puppies are going to be excited. They love snow. My dogs too. They love it in a big way. They get excited about just as they do with leaves in the yard. For some reason, snow is like a toy for them, so they get mad when I bring them in. Let's see. Josh, is there a 15, 20-year cycle of big snows like 77? In a sense, yes. Some of that does follow a bit of a solar cycle as well. But yeah, there are trends that do seem to happen and repeating themselves. The more we add another year, we call these analogs. So every year we have worth of data. We take it, smack it, put it in a book, and store it. And then all that data then accumulates, and we call that analog. So the computer systems then can take all the recorded data that we've been putting in books, and it starts to identify patterns that may signal what will happen in the future. So the more we keep adding another year into a book, things get a little more easier to figure out and predict in the future. That's why 7-day forecasts have become 10-day, in some cases 14 days. And really now a lot of the modeling can see out a good hour or an hour. Sometimes I can't see an hour, a good year in advance. So they're getting better and better. But yes, there is a cyclical pattern, but exactly by year on exact, that doesn't always hold up. But you're on the right train of thought. So there you go. Wayne, you went a little more north. I know you went into Indiana. Again, you'll have a bit of a higher rate, not too much different than Louisville, but still, this is going to be a pretty snow. I'm excited about it. Okay, so there you go. More changes are likely. So I want to make sure you guys are aware that there already been some changes, and there could be, and there will be more actually. So please just keep checking back in with the forecast. Don't just leave me here today and then hold this is what's going to happen for the entire setup. You got to keep checking back in. We'll worry about the updates. All right. We'll keep the app updated. We'll keep sending you notifications as we get more data. And I just want you guys to keep checking back in, because these setups, as you guys know, can even down to the hour that it's moving in, can still be adjusted. And anytime these temperatures get that close, I get a little more uneasy. You know, it's easier when it's very, very cold in the lower 20s. But when we get a little closer to that 28 to 30 mark, yeah, there's a little bit of that nagging thought in your head of worried that the data could be off by a couple more degrees from that. So, and that could make some minor differences here and now. So that's the reason why I think changes could still happen. Okay, so let's move on. Let's get into, the snow meter. Forgot about that. I had moved it up to 3. I don't think it's enough to shovel, sorry, but pretty, yes. And I do think once this falls, it may actually stay on the ground for a few days, especially if you're in a shady area, because when it may not get a lot of sun. Okay, so what's next? Well, the Monday clipper is still a thorn on our side. The Euro had it past several days, doesn't have it today. The NAM model, which I can't show you at the moment, does have it, but it actually dives it more this way, due south, toward basically Memphis. So there's still some disagreement. Typically, when you get a snowpack on the ground, like this one's going to do Saturday night, the next one will likely follow it, but be just a hair off a little more south. That's typically what happens. We'll see if that repeats that idea for Monday, but obviously with everyone getting back to work and school on Monday, we need to watch that in case there's any sneakiness going on with that clipper. All right, here's your overrunning for Wednesday. Again, brief mix early in the day, going to rain. This is a light event and it will not last very long. So we do not have it flagged as an alert day right now due to the very light and brief nature of it. If it slows down a bit more or gets more moisture involved in it, yes, that could change the storyline. But right now, everything looks too fast. And again, it's not a setup where it's all snow. We're going to be trying to trim back up as it passes by. But for the first few hours of its lifespan, yeah, there could be a little bit of a mix there at the very beginning. And then we get another shot of Arctic air that could lead to more snow showers Friday night into the upcoming weekend. And then we may just keep repeating this over and over. Still watch and see what happens with the energy that can ever roll out of Texas as these clippers are dropping down. The potential for phasing is still on the table, especially if we flatten out the jet a bit more. That trend is there. And it is certainly a pattern that can feature a winter storm like that. There's no data right now showing one. But the pattern is telling us that it's very much ripe for that kind of a setup. So we'll see as that evolves down the road. In fact, when you look at the core of the cold, obviously we know that it's dropping down. It's stretching more than anything, actually. It's not really the polar vortex moving away from the North Pole and moving down like it did in 2013 and 14. It's not doing that kind of a scenario. It's just stretching out to where the cold air can reach all the way down into Florida and knock those poor iguanas out of the tree. But as we evolve, the long-term signal that we're starting to get on this is that the blocking pattern across Siberia is there. You got your Eastern Canada, Hudson Bay low that's locked in. Still got a ridge. It keeps one that keeps showing up into Western Canada. Even one at times it shows up not far from the Aleutians and into the Bering Straits. All of this is indicating that the weather pattern is just not moving very fast when it comes to west to east type of systems. The Pacific Jet is not winning right now. It's losing. So because of that, we are allowing these cold shots of air to keep coming down. There is some potential here. This could lock in for a while. And if that's the case, well, then our winter forecast, we'll have to update it. And we may have to trend a little colder and a little more snowier. Not ready to do that yet. I'll likely look at that. I would say about 3 weeks. I'll give it a bit of time here before we get to the holidays. And I'll let you know if we need to revise that for the months of January and February. Not ready to do that yet because this is still an evolving pattern. But anytime these locking and blocking patterns like this get established, it's tough to get out of them. It really is. All right, let's look at your 10-day real quick. And there you go. I got the numbers in. Keep in mind, if we get snow on the ground, which I think we will have to knock some of these numbers down a bit. I know we've been playing around with that back and forth. Upper 20s, lower 30s. It's just one of those scenarios. It really just depends on the snow. So really, Saturday night is the catalyst on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So I think there is still some potential. We will not get above freezing. Some of you, I do think, I'm confident on that, will not get above freezing for 3 to 4 days once this moves in. But Louisville is a little different. Louisville can sometimes reach that limit. So that's why these numbers are a little different than what I think some of you may see. But I do think we're going to be in the deep freeze here for a while. We'll moderate to a lovely warm spell, almost Florida weather, upper 40s, with that mix coming into play as we head into Wednesday. And then there's the drop again for next weekend. Okay. Real quick, get some of your other questions. See Rose. How you doing, Rose? Do you think we'll see snowflakes while watching the game? During the game, no, I doubt it. I think the system won't be here in time to influence the game itself, but I think it's, I really just want to make sure you guys are aware of just traveling back from it, try to get back in time before this moves in. Can't stress that enough. If you don't want to deal with this, you can't drive on snow and ice. Some of us can't. Our nerves are just shot, right? I totally understand that. I'm that way too. Then you want to just take that worry out, get on back as soon as the game's over with. You got time, by the way. All right. It's not going to ice up and become snowy right away as soon as the game ends. You got some time. And I think that's that buffer of around 4 to 6 is a fair window before we run into issues on the side roads. So just be mindful of that. Let's see. There's so many even here, so I apologize if I'm missing some of your questions. Let's see. Let's see. Going to a concert Saturday night. Well, Samantha, I'm not sure where the concert is. Just be mindful. There could be some slick roads. Obviously, again, main roads, as long as they're salted, they will be. I know the snow team very well in the Louisville Metro does a really good job here of monitoring things constantly. So I think especially once we get the advisory out, things will kind of escalate a bit more in that talk, but I think they'll have a good handle on it. I just want you to be careful on the ramps and side roads. Main roads do very well in these kind of temperatures. So not as confident on big issues like that. And Mark, what is your confidence on the Monday Clipper? It's low. It's basically the percentage you see is almost our confidence, right? 10 to 20%. So it's low, but it's not zero. It is not zero because the models just don't know exactly where to place it because they don't know where the snowpack will be. And therefore it kind of just influences the next one after it. It's a cause and effect that we always see with every weather system that comes into play. And one last question real quick. Hi, Joanne, how you doing? Airport delays Saturday night. I think there will be some, but this is not a big enough snow that's going to cause a big amount of problems for the crews here. Runway crews in Louisville are excellent, mainly because of UPS. Louisville runs into very few problems. Since the 94 snowstorm issue, UPS is taking good care of all the international, and they do a great job. So, and it is the holiday time. Packages have got to go out and stuff like that. You guys know how that works. So I think therefore will be fine. Other cities like St. Louis could be some delays. It could influence us. So I'm not going to say no, but I think as far as the airport itself, I think we'll be in good shape. All right. I got to run for now. I know there's a lot of you in here, but just know that I'm going to have an update as more data is coming in as I'm talking to you guys on midday today at 11. So if I have another idea or a change, I'll start talking about it then on the show. And Kevin, of course, will be in this afternoon. I'll have a full update on where we stand. And for snow lovers, I hope it stays intact. For those that don't like snow, well, I hope it changes for you because we don't want anybody to get hurt, obviously. All right, be safe out there. I want you guys to enjoy this kind of stuff. I don't want you to be too stressed out about it, but that's the point. Plan ahead, and then you can enjoy it. Take care. See you on the flip side.